my name is Blahin Branek and I am co-author and also illustrator of I Want to Speak Ukrainian.
So firstly, just a little bit about me. First of all, I have recently turned 21. Woohoo! I like perfume, things that smell good. I'm also a really big fan of photography. I do it as a hobby a lot, but as you can see, I also use it in my illustrations for my books. Say cheese! And not to mention art. I love art, always have since I was very young. I did it for leaving cert in school, and I still do it now. Thought you might like to know a little bit about why I started writing books. So I wrote my first book when I was it was actually the summer before TY in school. I had decided I wanted to write a kids book, but I had no idea how to go about doing the illustrations. Not in terms of actually drawing, but in terms of digitally putting them into a file that I could print from. I'll talk more about my illustration style after this, but really that was the main reason for doing them like I do, as dioramas that I take a photo of. It combined both my enjoyment of art and photography with all of the dolls' furniture I had since I was younger, and also my love for making the little models of food and everything to add into my photos. The book was called But I Do Not Want to Go. I wrote it when I was 15 and I translated it into Irish just last year. And now we're going to hear from a much younger Blahin telling you about the illustration process.
The way I illustrate is that first I draw my characters on paper and then of course I, paint them in. After that, when they're dry, I get my scissors and I snip them out so they become little people. Then when I have all the people cut out, I set up little scenes and I make furniture for the dolls and things like that. And I take out my trusty camera and I snap a picture of the whole thing. Come here, I'll show you.
To start off with, I sketch my characters out onto thick paper using a pencil. Then it's on to painting, and I usually use watercolors because I can mix them and make nice colors with them. When they're dry, I use a pen to outline little details, and then snip, snip, snip. I choose you. Then I have to start setting up the scene. So usually I use nice patterned fabric for the walls and patterned paper for the floor. And then I will either make furniture or use furniture that exists from dolls' houses. When the illustrations are all done, I'll work on them on the computer a little bit to do final edits, and then I send the book off to be printed. So fast forward 2 years, cut off the hair, and we are back to us now. I may not have mentioned, but I'm a student in NUIG studying French, Spanish and Italian. And all throughout school, when I was studying French and Spanish, I had a big interest in different cultures and learning more about them. That was why I decided to write this book when I was in 5th year called I Want to Speak French. It was about a young girl called Leila who goes to France to visit her cousin Raphael, and along the way she learns some little bits of French and she learns about French culture. The aim of the book, of course, was not to teach children French necessarily, but more so to encourage them to want to learn languages and to want to know more about different cultures, just introducing the idea that there are more than one way of doing things and to encourage them to be interested in that. The book included both hot translations such as Les enfants, vous avez oublié le crème solaire! Children, you've forgotten the sunscreen! As well as small words scattered throughout the text that parents could read and that children could then copy. That, of course, led to my second book, Everyone Must Stay at Home, which I wrote during the pandemic. This book was just about what was happening, and it followed the same characters, Layla and her cousin Raphael, as they struggled with the fact that they couldn't see each other, they couldn't visit, because of COVID restrictions at the time. I was the Leaving Cert class of 2020, meaning that we were left for a long time, not sure whether our exams were going to go ahead or not, so I decided to take one weekend off to do this book. Achoo! I felt that maybe with this book I could help children in some small way to understand what was a very unusual situation for everybody. And so when Lindsay came to me with the idea to do a similar book to I Want to Speak French but for Ukrainian, that might help the children who come here to feel a little bit more settled in, or to feel that people were interested in knowing more about them, I was definitely interested in taking part in the project. To start off, we went back and forth between us writing the story. We kept sending files back and forth. I don't know how many copies of the story exist as we were going through. Then once we were happy with the story, I had to get on to storyboarding. So this is just where we work out what's going where and make sure we're happy with the scenes I'm going to set up before I get to them, because they're very time consuming to set up, so you want to be sure that you're happy with what you're doing before you get started. And then I had to move on to drawing and painting the characters. Because this book was set in a school, or part of it anyway was set in the school, I had quite a lot of characters to draw because we wanted to make sure that we got a good range of diverse characters, because obviously we need to reflect the real world. So yes, this part of the process did take quite a long time because I wanted to have everyone ready to go so that when it came to shooting I could just do it all together. I don't have any footage of this part, but I also gathered everything I would need for every scene before we got started. So that would mean any furniture that I was, pre-existing furniture, like dolls furniture that I was going to use. I made all of the furniture, I made all the background scenes that I thought I would need before we got started. One of these scenes that you'll see in the book is the kitchen scene. I tiled that whole back wall with teeny tiny little cutout tiles that I just made from cardboard. So I really enjoyed this part of the process, even though it did take quite a long time. And so you can see my characters went from this to this. Woo! As part of research for the book, we did visit some primary schools where we asked children what they would like to know about Ukraine. While there, we also asked a girl to draw what she believed a little Ukrainian girl would look like, and she drew a girl just like herself. So I actually based my design off the character that she drew, and here we have Darinka. We wanted to make the classroom instantly recognisable as a Shomoranga from an Irish primary school, and so to achieve this, I made a selection of posters with Irish words, and I did all of these digitally on my iPad. One of the biggest challenges we faced in the layout of the book was how we were going to lay out the Ukrainian text. We wanted it to be authentic, of course, just like I want to speak French. And to do that, it was necessary that we include the Cyrillic alphabet, because that is obviously what they use in Ukraine. This was difficult because we want the adult reading the book to be able to read the Ukrainian words so that the child can pick them up and maybe start using them now and then, all of which helps the Ukrainian children in the class. However, if we only included Cyrillic, the parent would not be able to pronounce the word, and so the child would not be able to use the word. For that reason, we had to include phonetics in the Roman alphabet too in the English version. But again, we weren't sure how we would lay this out. I thought it would be ugly if it was just directly after the word. And I mean, in theory, then it's the same word straight after, just the same word twice. So in the end, I came up with this way of doing it where we have the Cyrillic on top, and then in smaller font underneath, we have the phonetics. I think it works really well because as you read through the line, you read it just as any other word, it's just that it's the phonetics you're reading. And of course, then if there are Ukrainian children in the class, they can see the Cyrillic and read it out to the class as they would. Just like I included Leo Varadkar in the book about the pandemic, I thought it was important to include Zelensky here on the TV, as he is a figure that we see a lot nowadays. A few other interesting things to note from this scene are that I made all of the decorations. The only things that I didn't make in this scene are the couch and the table the TV is on. Everything else I made myself. And the clock is actually a Rolex watch from my granduncle. An important aspect of Ukrainian culture that we wanted to include in the book were these beautiful eggs which people make around Easter time in Ukraine. We got to discover them thanks to the Ukrainian community here in Galway, who invited us to spend an afternoon with them making these eggs, and I even included my one on the cover of the book. I then wanted to include a scene in the book where the girls make the eggs, so this afternoon spent making the eggs was invaluable experience for creating the scene. So I shaved down a little tea light to make the teeny tiny candle, and I even lit it, and I was so pleased that I managed to get the scene with the lit candle. Writing and illustrating this book really has been an amazing experience for me. It was so different to I Want to Speak French, because writing that, I had a lot of knowledge of France anyway. I had been to France a lot and spent a lot of time with French people, so I kind of knew the kind of things that I wanted to put into the book. This one was different because I didn't really know anything about Ukraine before this, and I think many people were probably in the same situation. But I think what's important is that we try and learn and educate ourselves so that we can help people who might be in need of some support right now. Even though in this book we follow my same character that we met in I Want to Speak French, Layla, this book was hugely different because I hadn't done a book for Layla before that had a full classroom full of kids, so that was all a new experience for me and one I thoroughly enjoyed. I also feel I've learned so much during this project, both from Lindsay's research, from the Ukrainian community in Galway that I had the chance to meet, from our translator Helena, who translated the whole book to Ukrainian for us, and the primary school children we worked with along the way, who helped with ideas for what they wanted to know about Ukraine. So once again, thank you so much to everyone who was involved with the book. It was a pleasure to work with everyone. I've thoroughly enjoyed the experience of writing this book, and I hope you will enjoy reading it. Thank you very much for watching this video, and bye bye.